Go ahead. You're live. You're live. There you have it.
Hello and good morning.
I can turn anyone.
We have
into a beach
commercials.
What are you selling this morning?
ball. I
You
bring
have a
families
commercial on.
together for a living.
I get a kickback for all the
Verbo?
for all the
memories.
all
for
the.
people
I'm not sure what we're selling, but it must be something.
I'd like to I would like to say that we have a little surprise. We are live on Facebook right now. So you girls, I didn't tell you, but I just thought
She
it would
didn't
be
tell me
fun.
either, by the way.
I told him 2 minutes ago, let's take your thing live, right?
So I didn't even.
Yeah. So good morning, everybody. I don't know what camera I'm on because I see no red
You're on
lights
a wide
anywhere.
camera right now.
Okay, great.
Just because I have to turn
Hi,
stuff on
guys.
still.
Good morning. We are super excited to be here at Get Your Fire Back Las Vegas. We have had such a good weekend so far. Today is our last day, which is so weird. Didn't it go by fast? Like really fast. So I'm really excited because everybody turn around. We'll go on a wide shot.
No. What I'll do is I'll set it up so they can see. This is what the audience is seeing.
That's what the yes.
Well,
that's
the
what,
Facebook
That's what the
audience.
Facebook audience is seeing. And I don't have my phone with me.
Oh my God.
My phone is in the back. Yeah, I know. But I just want to see, who's here and say hi. So we have some terrific people here that you all know from. There I am. You all know from our Facebook family room, which is really great. We'll go to a wide shot so everybody can wave because I think that there you go. Everybody, turn around and wave at the cameras. That's right. So what's really nice is just being able. Do you have my glasses?
No.
Okay, here, I have a pair here.
I'm lucky to be in charge of my own glasses.
Well, you borrowed mine, so that's
No.
why I was asking.
No. I asked to, but you never came back, so I had to go get mine.
No, I did come back. I gave you my glasses. Mariana.
Hey. These are not your glasses. I don't know.
No, mine are in the back. I brought
I don't
them
know.
to you.
I never got to them.
You
'cause
see how he is?
It was slow.
Okay. Are you sure that you don't remember me handing you the glasses
I'm positive.
immediately
I'm
after?
positive. I'll go back and check if you'd like.
Okay, don't hide them. Be honest. I want to know that you got those because I brought them back. I do forget
I think they're with your
things,
car
like why I
keys.
walked into a room and why I'm here sometimes. But when Todd asks me for something, I am on it, like immediately. Do you
There are
see
glasses on the director's chair back there, but
That's correct.
I never saw them. No, but
Yoo-hoo!
that's okay.
I did what I was asked. Just want to go on the record. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to look in here and see who is in the room, and then I'm going to have Todd. Todd just showed something that we couldn't show on Facebook because you know how it goes. We get in trouble because it was a song from Sound of Music.
Right, but that was such an original, presentation, arrangement, etc. I'm not sure if it would have kicked off or not, but somebody else had posted it. I was just playing it right off YouTube.
Right, I know, but YouTube, we get everything on YouTube, and we still get in Facebook jail. So, I just had him play it. Hello, Arlene Zinstein, Tracy Saunders, my sister's here. Hi, Kimmy, Seth Robichaux. Good morning. Hey, Trey Sam.
You guys all know these people?
Oh, they do. Patty Hughes. We all know each other. Trey
right.
Sam. That's a new name for me. Huh? Oh, sorry, I did meet you in Pennsylvania with Tammy. Cheryl Jacobs, Tuesday Weedlock Butcher. Hello, Tuesday. It's good to have you here. Stephanie Lloyd. Let me just tell you, your husband has been a cooking fool. He is amazing.
But right now
thank you
he's
for letting him.
watching the golf game, just checking.
Is he?
Yeah, there's a match play tournament in Texas right now that he's watching. That's where I was, but I was pressed into service the way the Brits used to do on the.
I'm just trying to think
Navy.
did I leave Nugget on the back of his chair?
No, you did
okay,
not.
I took
because Bill was cleaning the hootie off the seat.
Oh, okay.
Before he could sit and watch the golf
Hey,
game.
when you have a pet rooster, that happens, and
You get a lot of hootie everywhere.
He's going in for surgery tomorrow, Nugget.
Today.
No, I changed it to tomorrow because I can't function, with him coming to get him in the middle of the day, and it just can't. And Dwight, we could use some prayers for Dwight because he's been he went in. Is he having a blood transfusion right now?
He already did, and they've stabilized him. But he went in yesterday in critical condition to
Yeah.
the emergency room, dog emergency room,
Yep.
and he had thrown up a blood clot, so he had internal bleeding.
Aw.
We don't know why, but the normal vet, freaked at his blood count, and we had to send him to a special hospital here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Now they gave him a doggy blood transfusion, so his blood levels are now stable again. However, they don't know what's causing this internal bleeding. So yes, please pray for Dwight because he's a good boy. However,
He's a good
through
boy.
all of it, you say in all of these things, you do everything that you can possibly do, and then you have to at some point say it's up to God after that at a certain point. Not to say we're inactive. I don't like people that just sit back and say, well, God will figure it out. I mean, that's not reality. We're all here for a reason. We're all here not only for our own personal families, but we're here for each other on other levels, which is in a way what this seminar is about also.
Yep.
But what happens in this case is at a certain point, like yesterday, the doctor said to me, well, I mean, can you handle this? Like we may have to put him down. And I said, whoa, just hold it right there a second. I said, what would you do if this was a human being? And he said, well, we don't have the ability to deal with that here. I said, okay, well, where do they have the ability to deal with this? So you have to ask the right questions, too, because as far as this guy was concerned, game over. So when I pressed him, he said there's one place in Vegas that can do doggy transfusions and get him on a blood, transfusion. So I said, that's great, make the call. And so I was there within 15 minutes from that conversation. We get him going, and so he's still with us at this moment. But ultimately, this is one of those things where it truly is up to God. But again, my grandmother used to say, God helps those who helps themselves. Now, she swore that was in the Bible.
It's not.
It took me 23 years to realize it wasn't in there. I did.
No, but it's a good rule because I do think God wants us to meet him halfway.
He wants you to meet him
Yeah.
halfway. He wants you to take action to the full extent of your abilities. I did bury my grandmother with the actual book and phrase and person who did say that. So when we were at her service, burying my grandmother, I got a little book of Poor Richard's Almanac. It was Benjamin Franklin who said that.
There you go.
And I put it in her little casket with her, saying, let's get this straight right now, once and for all. So that's a settled issue. Benjamin Franklin is the one that said, God helps those who helps themselves.
And it's true, and he probably got it from the.
Well, it's based
Halfway.
on, it actually,
Yeah,
it's,
scripture
it
of
is
some
a
sort.
scriptural, depending upon how you interpret things, as you know, people can interpret the Bible wildly. In history, we've had wars fought over Scripture, which is hard to even fathom how you get to that. And here we are today in the middle of another one. Anyway, so...
So I wanted you to come on and talk because, and I feel bad because the last Get Your Fire Back, you were under the weather with a headache, and so we didn't get a chance to do this. And, everyone loves you. And
when I'm asleep.
When you're asleep, and I really thought it would be nice, for everyone to be able to ask whatever they want, or we're here. This is a personal development. This is a personal development course. So I know that life's experiences of people, to me, are the most inspiring because people rise from the ashes. What is the difference between a person that just curls up in a ball on the bathroom floor and a person that is saying, my life is not working in certain areas. Instead of going down with the ship, I'm going to do something. I'm going to adapt, overcome, persevere,
Well,
So what is the difference?
Well, you brought up that quote, which is actually, a military phrase. It has military background. Because let's face it, the most extreme conditions in life is war. But in many ways, everybody's life is a little war of its own. It's the war of the families. It's the war of the personalities. It's the war of the roses, as the movie went. And life is full of that. And my life was certainly full of that. And I got to watch my mother go through a lot of that. I wasn't born when she actually went to Korea, but something that shaped my mother in her life deeply was her trips to Korea to entertain the troops and also to visit the MASH hospital units and all of that. And I feel like that had a lot to do with her future and how she approached her personal charity in life, but also how she approached her perseverance and her approach to things. I didn't realize for decades that there was an underpinning before all of that that had come from my grandfather. And my grandfather was a quiet man. He was a very spindly figure, not very bigger than me, but even thinner than me, if you can imagine such a thing. And he had programmed my whole family, including my mother, in what was his personal philosophies. And but he wasn't a religious man. In fact, he used to say, if I went into church, the whole roof would cave in. But the irony is that was really not the case. He was actually the most moral man I had ever known and charitable man I had ever known. Yet he didn't talk the talk, and he didn't try to put a label on it, and he didn't go gather with the congregation. He just lived that life. So that was an interesting role model for myself, my mother included. When I was a little boy, about 7 years old, my grandfather was painting a fence out in front of my mother's house on Evergreen in Burbank. It's a white picket fence, right out of a Norman Rockwell painting. And he's going along, and I'm watching, and I said at a certain point, "Hey, could I get in on that? That looks cool." And he said, "Sure, but if you start this with me, we're going to have to finish. You got to finish the project with me." I'm like, "Oh, no problem." So off we go. We're painting this fence. Half an hour maybe at most at a 7-year-old level or 6 years old. I was done painting the fence. And I said, "Okay, I've had enough of the fence thing now. I really can't do anymore." And he said, "You what?" I said, "I can't do anymore." And he says, "There is no word in our family vocabulary, can't." Now, at that age, you're not looking in too deep. And I was like, "I don't get it." And he says, "We don't have that word. There's a lot of other words that you could use. Want to do it, you're a quitter, whatever it is, but we have no can't. You started it with me, you'll finish it with me." And I did. I finished it with him. Now, it took me 40 years to realize that was the same rap in probably some other fashion that he had laid onto my mother, who was faced with a lot of situations in her life where you could have said, "I can't do this." I just told the story of Dwight. The vet gave me an opportunity to say, "I can't do this." And I said, we don't use that word in our crew. He didn't know what I meant, and I didn't tell him the story. But the moral of the story is my mother's sitting under the wrath of Gene Kelly making Singing in the Rain. And she's a young teenager with little experience, certainly little life experience, certainly less dance experience. And Gene Kelly wants to prove Louis B. Mayer wrong by showing that she can't keep up with Donald O'Connor and her, which, by the way, who could? I mean, that's like, okay, so I couldn't keep up with Donald O'Connor and Gene Kelly. Okay, so what? There are only like a handful of people on earth that could do that. So she was literally crying under a piano by herself with her feet bleeding. And Fred Astaire came up to hers, and he leaned down under the table, looking. And "What's going on down there?" And she's like, I don't know if I can do this. And so in the spirit of Ray Reynolds, his hand came down and said, "Come with me." And he took her down the street at MGM Studios. And they had rows of studios of different sizes. Some of these studios were huge production sets that you'd seen these spectacles on. And the Esther Williams swimming pool was all in a soundstage like that. But there were smaller ones where people would rehearse. And Pandora Bergman and Fred Astaire rehearsed incessantly in a particular room. It was his room. So he took, and that's private. Nobody went in there. There was actually a security guard at the door. And so he took her in there, and he showed her how hard it was for him to rehearse and to crank out the work that he did. And she saw him missing steps and really, working hard. And, he taught her there is no easy way. There's no way around the hard work if you want to be the dream. Whatever your dream is, if you want to get to whatever that is, there's no substitute for hard work. And even I, the great Fred Astaire, who makes everything look so easy. When you watch him dance, you're like, oh, there's nothing to this. I can do that. Then you try to get up and do it, and you're like, whoa. So she went back and stuck with it, and she blew Gene Kelly away, and eventually Gene Kelly conceded. But, Gene Kelly argued with Louis B. Mayer, saying, this girl has no experience. What are we doing here? I mean, where's Sid Charisse or somebody who knows how to dance? Come on. I don't need children in my class. So the moral of that story is there's numerous opportunities, no matter what you're faced with in life, to stop, to quit. I can't. It just depends how bad you want it. And you keep going. My mother in life was faced with endless challenges. The next one that I think of, not necessarily sequentially, was she gets off of an airplane holding my sister, and she had just had me. And the press runs up to her and they say, what is your comment Eddie Fisher has left you for Elizabeth Taylor? Now, she had not heard. Now, she knew the rumors were there, but she didn't know. So you're being told while the cameras are rolling, they're in your face. And you have your child, and you're being told your family is being broken up. So however flaky my dad was, you could have, the opportunity still was there for him to hang in there. He even in that environment, there were a lot of men that had affairs, and the family would stay together. So there was no guarantee just because things weren't going smoothly. She didn't realize that was it until that moment. And if you watch that footage, which it's actually on the internet, with unbelievable poise and grace, she says, no, I am not aware of that. I haven't seen that yet. She just handles it. I mean, like most people would be like, I don't even know what most people would do. You're sitting there holding these babies, you're by yourself. You're also have a huge career going. It's not like you have a lot of time to do all of these things. You're now being told you're on your own. Not that my dad was a big help anyway, by the way. I don't think he ever changed a diaper in his life. I don't even sure knew what a diaper was. But the moral of that story was, once again, she was faced with what most people would consider a cataclysmic event. And she, for the sake of her teaching and also for her children, we all find reasons to do things, don't we? Why do we carry on? My sister's reason, faced with all the things that she was faced with, was early on became her daughter. When Carrie had her daughter Billy, that became her reason. She tried to do things as best she could for the sake of her daughter. She didn't want to disappoint her daughter, things like that. So we do find reasons to justify why we do things. You don't have to have that reason, although I do seem to find this common thread amongst mothers, that they do things for their children. And my mother was a vicious mama bear. And if you messed with her children, you were in for it. My mother many times was challenged, not just publicly humiliated the way she was there, but through life losses of fortune and you just having to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start over again. I mean, that was her mantra. The unsinkable Molly Brown role that she portrayed, was truly her, at her core. I mean, that was who she was. She chose that, though. No one's born this way. These are choices. Some people are tougher than other people. But my mother, look at her. She's 5'1". I mean, she weighed 90-something pounds. I watched her knock a full-grown man down with one punch at 96 pounds. So it's the old expression, it's not the size of the dog, but the size of the bite in the dog. So I think my mother had a very big bite if you pushed her in the wrong direction. And some people found that out. But their success in life mirrored this too. The ability to overcome things is also partly attributed to your ability to succeed in your dreams, your goals. Both my sister did not have a defined dream like my mother did. Of course, my mother had no dream at all. She wanted to be a gym teacher. So going into show business wasn't even in the cards. Nobody cared. Certainly wasn't her dream. It became her dream. Like when she saw early on they gave her these silly little roles. I want to be loved by you, boop, boopy doop. Okay, whatever, but that's not exactly inspiring for a young actress. This is what I want to be, Helen Kane. She later played in a movie with Bette Davis called The Catered Affair, and in this movie, you know, it was clear that she was a fine actress and no acting lessons whatsoever. So the moral of that story is some people do have a God-given gift to do certain things. So it's nice when you can find what your gift is in the world and follow that, because you're more likely to succeed at that than if you follow something that's not in the cards. I've had many friends come up to me and start to sing or something, and and they say, "What do you think?" And I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you can sing okay, but you're not going to, you're not Frank Sinatra, you're not Debbie Reynolds, whatever, So, on the other hand, training. So you can push this thing and be trained in certain areas, but there is a point where nature and talent, at some point need to converge, especially when you're talking about success at the level that I am talking about. I'm talking about the level of my mother's success. Carrie's success was based on a lifelong grooming. My mother, at a very young age, was grooming Carrie to perform. Gave her the best lessons and, of course, had us on stage very young. I never got all the lessons. I don't know what it is. Maybe my mother thought I was fine on my own. Maybe I just have a natural ability to gab or whatever. She just pushed me out on stage. Now, Carrie's getting all these singing lessons, and not me. I'm just out there with them performing and whatever. It was clear, though, that I wasn't as into it as Carrie was. She was definitely showing signs of being into it. I suspect that I was not exactly at 10 years old, showing great signs of interest in some of this stuff. Long story short, though, years were spent with Carrie in this training, and as Carrie got to be a little older, we started to realize there were things about Carrie that were very different than me. She required a lot more maintenance than I did. My mother used to, spend a lot more time with Carrie to get her to go to sleep, to get all these things going on. And we didn't realize what we were looking at, but we were looking at the early stages of bipolar disorder. No one knew what that was. Those words didn't exist. They wouldn't even have called it a mental illness back then, or even depression was not even talked about at this point. But we were definitely seeing sort of these mood swings of Carrie, and that we could have identified. This led, though, to a lot of extra time being invested in Carrie. At the same time, Carrie had a lot of natural talent, as we all now know, but back then nobody knew her talents. I knew her writing talents at a very young age. I have most of her writings as a child. It's crazy. Longhand, amazing downloading of thought, deep thoughts for a teenager, like stuff that I'd be surprised. I mean, I don't know if I've ever thought that deep. I mean, it's remarkable what she was doing at a very young age. So she had that gift was more prevalent than anything else. She also was a little bit of a belter. She could sing songs on the stage, and we would sing together. She liked to belt. Ironically, the second time we performed together in Vegas at the Desert Inn, I played guitar and she sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. That was her choice. We never dreamed she was going to go marry the guy that wrote the song and sang. I mean, what kind of a crazy thing was that? Especially since we all knew the story so well of my mother with Fred Astaire. So in the movie The Tender Trap, Fred Astaire co-stars with my mom, and he's about 10 years older than her. And
Fred
yet,
Astaire or
Frank Sinatra. Yeah. And Frank is a womanizer even at that point, but 10 years of a spread in those days was a little too much for even him. So he kind of was very much a gentleman with my mom, even though they had kissing scenes and all that. My mother used to say that he was a great kisser. I don't know if she was saying that just to make us all go, ooh. It worked, though, didn't it? But at any rate, that advice from Sinatra was, whatever you do, do not marry a singer. So she goes right out and marries my dad, who's this singer. Now, ironically, my mother said to Carrie, we all knew that story, of course, and the divorce had long since passed. And my mother had said to Carrie, whatever you do, don't marry a short Jewish singer. We're going to get more refined. So she goes right out and marries Paul Simon, who is a short Jewish singer. And so this is back to don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say. A lot of the do as I say in our family. And anyway, Carrie went on to marry a short Jewish singer, the Bridge on the Road thing. But her success was based upon great support from her family, which not everybody has. I mean, nobody had quite the support that Carrie had. I mean, this one over here did not have support. She got where she got fighting that on her own. In fact, she had no support. My mother was very supportive of any dream that Carrie and I ever had. And that's a great thing to do for your children, is to allow them to dream big and to support those dreams. So no matter whatever Carrie wanted to do. Now, as my mother would support one thing, Carrie would want to go another way, because mothers and daughters, you don't want to do what your mom says. So there was a lot of that going on. So that's why the singing kind of went by the side with Carrie, because she did not get, that was too much of a direct support from my mom. So she wanted to do, all of a sudden the acting thing came in. And she went on a couple little small parts. One of them was Shampoo with Warren Beatty, and she plays this very small part. And she's a little chubby even, you could say. I don't even know how she really gets cast in this role. Here's how she gets cast in the role, though. I mean, I do know. She's the little Beverly Hills princess. For real. She's been raised and groomed a little Beverly Hills princess. She plays the part and is the part. So when Warren Beatty sees her, he's like, right on. This is exactly what I want for this part. The only problem is, in the dialogue, it says, Carrie has to say, you want to F.
Okay, good. Just like when I did Facebook challenge.
And Warren, my mom goes to Warren and says, can't we change this, do you want to F to, do you want to screw? And Warren says, Debbie, that's not what this movie is. It's an R-rated movie. The audience is well tuned into this. This is shock value. It's got to be that. And so it was hard for him to actually convince my mom to let this fly, because Carrie's underage, don't forget. She's not able to say, I'm going to say whatever I want. Too bad. Needless to say, she says the line in the movie, and it gets kind of famous. My mother also said to Warren that day, if you touch my daughter, I know people. Have you heard the expression, we're going to have you 86th? That was invented here in Las Vegas, because where we sit right now in the center of Las Vegas, 8 miles in any direction is desert, and 6 feet under is where you'll be. That was an old mafia threat here in Vegas, and she used it on him. You were with me. We went to the Academy Awards 100 years later, and my mom was gone, and they were honoring Carrie and my mother. And in the elevator, I'm standing with Warren, and I asked him about that story, and he remembered it perfectly. So
I remember seeing him on the elevator.
Yeah, don't you remember?
And he's still so handsome. He looks so good.
He's a very tall, handsome guy.
And then Casey Affleck won the Oscar that night for Best Actor.
You were talking to him, right?
And I left you on the elevator with Warren Beatty, and I was out there going, I never ask people to take pictures with me. Never. Because you just don't know how it's going to go. And so he was standing there with his Oscar, just standing there, and I went up and said, would it be okay if we took a little selfie together? He has his Academy Award. And it was so wonderful to have somebody go, sure, instead of, what you're afraid of is people are going to be bothered or whatever. So that was really great. Now, I wanted to ask you about, you were saying that you have to be willing to work hard. It takes hard work about, let's say, succeeding at something or going for your dream. It takes equal, if not more, self-confidence. Self-confidence is huge, because if you and being a person that's not difficult is huge, because in any job, not just in the entertainment business, but if someone has the same talent, but the scale is difficult to work with, right? You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Then if you're problematic at work, the talent will take a back seat to that, because people don't want to work with that, right?
Yep.
So if someone is a little less talented but easy to work with, they're probably still going to get the job, because whether it's in an office environment or entertainment environment, it doesn't really matter, because people want to work with not difficult people. Now, in our business, I've seen incredibly difficult people really act out, and should have been fired on the spot for that acting out, and how severe it was, how disrespectful it was, really. But they weren't. And so I think sometimes this is the only business where people get away with that. but it takes morale down of the entire company. You know, like we were talking this morning, and Malty was saying, you know, that things at work are changing, new boss, new office, you know, she's going to miss her friends, you know, that she's been working with at the sheriff's department, right? LAPD. And it gets toxic in the workplace sometimes, doesn't it? People aren't easy to work with. People are they're there to make problems for people. It's part of how they're wired. But self-confidence is huge, 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 because confidence sells. And part of the reason that we're here is to instill self-confidence into people, help them find their confidence. And so I'm wondering, where did Debbie get her confidence, and did she pass that on to Carrie? Because Debbie had a difficult mother who wasn't always positive, if that's putting it lightly, you know. That stuff goes in, no matter what. It does, and Debbie loved her mother. But, so you had a grandfather that was very quiet, but had his own philosophy, and we just heard about. Debbie's mom, your grandmother, was hard on Debbie and pretty much everybody. She just didn't have a filter, right? So how did your mom get that self-confidence?
Well, it goes back to my grandfather again, because, you know, he wasn't, they were very different. My grandmother was, as you say, she had a hard life. We know our family was the Grapes of Wrath family. We literally came across the Texas desert in a Model T Ford in the Depression in the middle of the Dust Bowl. He got turned away at the California border. He had to fight his way to get us into California. He had a job with the railroad. They stationed him in Burbank. So he was a fighter, and made the life that became what is now. I wouldn't be sitting if it wasn't for his tenacity. Sure, there was adversity, constant adversity. Mm-hmm. But my mother watched him too, the way he handled things. He never took no. He had his dream, which was to settle his family in Burbank. It was a smaller dream, but it was still his dream. Once he had that dream, by the way, he was fine. He didn't want anything more than that. He was happy with the little house that he built in Burbank on Evergreen, and he was good with that dream. You know, it's important to have a dream that is realistic and a dream that you're going to be happy with, and to go after that dream with everything you've got and then some. You're going to find all through life that there's moments where a defining moment where you have a choice to go one way or the other. My mother was faced with those constantly. You know, hers is a little different story. My mother had something that Carrie and I used to call a je ne sais quoi. It's sort of which means an unknown in French. And it's true, she had a little something was hard to define, a look about her. The same reason why they chose her for a lot of things is she had something special about her. But I mean, I think we all have a gift of sorts within us, and it's hard sometimes to get that out. If you're working at the LAPD and you have some other talent, you know, sometimes it's hard to let that talent shine. But there are opportunities to let other talent shine, and not everybody needs to be in show business. God help us. You know, people used to say to me all the time, "Why don't you sing more?" I said, "We don't need another mediocre singer." I mean, I can do a great impression of my dad, but that's about where it ends. I mean, it's not my thing. It's not what I need to be doing. It's not also what it floats my boat. But the question was simple: what is it about? What did Debbie, you know, how did she get a hold of that, and what caused her to push forward, given her total coming from nowhere? So she had her dream was already set in her mind to be a gym teacher. So she was pretty athletic and was always very coordinated. And you could see, obviously now we know she can move well and all that, but no one knew she wasn't really a dancer. But she was willing, even back then, to really pursue this. She was already had multiple letters from high school and all that. So she was an accomplished athlete at a young age. She was also a French horn player and was, you know, whatever kids do. You know, it's like out of some old movie. It looks like one of Andy Hardy movies, you know, like kind of the set she grew up on. But at a certain point, she goes to this Miss Burbank contest, which, you know, was a choice to go, but she didn't go because she wanted to win the Miss Burbank contest. She went because she wanted to get the free dress that they were giving away. So, and that's okay, right? You know, go compete to win something, not to win it, but to at least get the runner-up prize. So she wins, though. She was leaving and they had to stop her. This, though, led to a forced change in her, right? All of a sudden, she was now forced into another environment. But because of my grandfather and this, there's no can't, and the way we had been programmed, when put in the place in the front of this new hurdle in life, which was at that moment to act in some of these smaller movies, wasn't even Dance with Gene Kelly yet. It was a challenge that she embraced and went after with the same fervor that my grandfather went after when he was breaking down this Model T Ford in the middle of the Texas desert trying to get to California. I mean, it was a gut level, never say die. And so the challenge was important to her. She loved the challenge. And then it became another challenge. Can you sing? Wasn't anymore, by the way, in the first movie she does, she mouths the lips. They don't even know she could sing yet. The poop-poop-doo thing is actually Helen Kane, not my mom's voice. She could easily have done it, but they didn't even know yet. So everything that got in front of her was a challenge, and she attacked it and just had that added. In fact, the harder things get in our family, the tougher we get. I can remember when I was doing the hotel with my mom, and I mean, the world was just coming unraveled. I mean, people were attacking her and me from every angle. And now tables were turned. I'm 30 years old. I can protect my mother to some degree. I mean, I was tenacious. At one point, there was a guy that came in the office, some attorneys came in the office. I said, come on, bring it on. Just bring it on, because I'm going to eat you up and spit you out. I'm not Tammy. That's Tammy. I pointed to a picture on the wall. I'm not. Don't ever make that mistake. And I did. I ate them all for lunch. And it was but that's a survival adrenaline of sorts. It's a chemical reaction. And I think that in order to stir the chemicals in your brain, sometimes you gotta reach down deep and pull yourself up.
And who taught you that?
That's the mama.
That's exactly right. Yep.
The mama.
Judith IDK, as she is known by our audience, has a kind of an interesting question, I think. Because I don't think anyone's ever asked you this. So, and then I'll take a few from here. Judith, what's your question for Todd? Do you remember? We talked about it when I was inside at the table, and you wanted to ask Todd.
Do you remember it?
Take care of them.
And take care of all these things.
Family things.
And some things put on you at a very young age, things that you said you realized going on in your family or with business, and you're very successful, both of you. And to see this and wonder, you've just explained half of it, but I mean, you've got to have something maybe like your mother, that some force that you just accepted what the challenge was. And
Okay, so the question is, I'm going to repeat it for the audience because they can't hear you. So the question is, where did you learn to step in and take care of? You were the problem solver for both Debbie and Carrie. That's what I saw. You know what I mean? Like you would come in.
I used to call myself the designated driver.
The designated driver, but. How did you? I think the question is sort of like, where did you learn to be able to do that, and maintain your own life, and help? There were big things that came up. Even in my time in this family, I've seen big things come up, and they call you, and you would go into Los Angeles and help solve things, and just be the. You caretook both of them a lot. I think that's the word that I would use.
Well, there was, it's a lifetime. It's not something that where you could say, take a 2-day course in this and, and you will be this. But I will say that it was a lifetime of watching an evolution of a greater need. And this has to do now with more of a spiritual concept where, as a little boy, I watched my mother sitting in a meeting with the attorneys that were the divorce attorneys for Harry Carl. We were in New York City at the time. And they were talking about all the stuff that she was going to have to give up in this divorce. And yet he was the one that had destroyed the family with his reckless financial behavior and drinking and whoring around. And it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? And it was kind of like that scene in Big where I was 14, I raised my hand, and everybody, attorneys were like, yes? I said, I've heard everything that she's going to give up. What is he going to give up?
And how old were you?
I was 15.
Yeah.
And at that moment, that was the moment. And my mother actually came to me sometime shortly thereafter and said, I'm sorry that your childhood has to end now. And
Who said that?
My mother said that to me.
About your childhood?
My childhood.
Wow.
But it was a choice also. She saw the fire in me. And it was the son protecting the mother. And God help those that get between the sons and the mothers, because you will have your hands full. I would have killed for my mother if need be, and or sister.
Yes.
So that is...
You're choking yourself up.
Always. But
I like that, though. But what are you feeling right now?
No, I was saying what I was feeling. Those are the things that are within you that come out. It's a choice. You could look at that same thing and remain silent. You can choose not to step up to these conditions in life. I'm too young is a good excuse, right? This is not my time. But, the reality is that was my starting point. And from there, I never left her side from that day forward. We went on through many other challenges after that. And I just, it became clear that I needed to be there. And if you really analyze it, God put me in that position. I don't know if you guys know the story in my book where my mother chases my father to Europe to get pregnant with me. And, in one time sleeping with my dad and her friends saying, no, it's impossible. You can't get pregnant just sleeping with him one time. Well, so here I am, right? But her mission was that Carrie wouldn't be alone. But also the mission, that was now that was the family that she had created. That was the unit. So I would say that it's important, to be part of your family if you have a family. And if not, make one. And family doesn't have to always be blood. Family is what you choose. There are people that we've had people in our family for 50, 60 years, that have either worked for us or friends. And that's a good thing too. Those are very powerful components. But anyway, it is definitely a choice that one makes. I didn't have a religious background as a child at all, especially at 14. I wasn't thinking this is somehow my God, mission, or somehow I'm being called to do this or some higher power thing at all. At that age, that's not it. I was just looking at my mother. So that was the call to arms. And later in life, I made a choice, to ask God to be part of my life, based on a very logical plea that I heard from a guy by the name of Jack Hayford, who just said, what is it exactly that you have to lose by not asking God to be part of your life in some way? I mean, let's just say that I'm right and there's a God. I mean, he was like rationalizing this, and I dug what he was saying. He's saying, let's say I'm right and there's a God. What would be the exact problem with asking him to be involved in your life? I mean, how would that be a problem? So anyway, that decision was made when I was in my 20s. And then that gave me a lot more of an additional foundation. Also, I started to see where some of these Ray Reynolds philosophies were coming from. These were actual biblical principles that had been thousands of years in play. It wasn't like just a Ray Reynolds original, although there was a spin on it, that he had adopted. And then I'm looking, it's funny, this guy's sitting right here. I got Yoda sitting here.
Your lap Yoda.
Yeah. Now, Yoda is an interesting guy because if some of Yoda's philosophies, the first Star Wars, there's no Yoda, right? But by the rest of the Star Wars, as Yoda's coming into the picture, but there is no can't, only do. All those philosophies are actually Ray Reynolds' philosophies embodied in this little short green guy. And so I think there's something special about, that's also why we love that movie. Why do we love these movies? Because they're clear in the area of good and evil. Life is very clear as far as good and bad. Also, there's great philosophies within that, and you're watching people endure and overcome and succeed in the face of great adversity. We love this. And of course, there's romance and all that, and that's great. And we laugh, we cry. That's what the movie is supposed to do. But they also are supposed to inspire, more importantly than anything else. The movie Singing in the Rain, if nothing else, inspires you. It's a feel-good movie, but don't you want to go dance after that movie, even if you can't? You want to sing and dance after that movie, even if you can't. You certainly want to make them laugh, as Donald O'Connor would say. If you listen to those lyrics, God said, "Be an actress, my son, but be a comical one." They'll be standing in line to see the one honky, two monkey shine. I mean, it's if the lyrics are hilarious and they're just about making that people would rather laugh than cry. I mean, Hollywood's yet to learn that lesson. I think crying is okay. Again, there's a great example in the movies where you could see a great love story or a tragedy, and maybe you can be inspired by that. I think there is something very healing about comedy. My mother gravitated obviously towards comedy more than anything else, but I think she could have done more drama at the same time. But there is those philosophies that are in these movies. A lot of times there's great, Steve Martin that said, all life's great questions are answered in the movies.
I do think that was him.
That's the best line ever because it's absolutely true. We've had thousands of stories told, including the greatest stories ever told from Ben-Hur on down. You've told every story there is to tell, and you showed it in those. So yes, if you choose to look, those answers are there. But what is the greatest thing about a movie is it inspires you. Anybody's story can inspire you. Why do you go read a book? Why do you watch a movie? Why do you see a TV show? Hopefully that story inspires you to overcome somebody else's life who's been through something. And we're talking about Carrie and Debbie. Both, had great adversity. But Carrie, in my opinion, had greater adversity. And in some ways, she's more inspirational. I mean, people find this hard to understand coming from me, but I can assure you that, as the old line goes, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did backwards, but on high heels. So that's how I feel like Carrie. Carrie had to go through life with a great mental handicap on her, and yet she managed not only just to get to do it, but she excelled. So why did she do that? Why didn't she just fold? My mother would have covered her. And my mother had spent her whole life covering her. Mm-hmm. I mean, she didn't have to work. She could have said, "I'm done. This is it. I have a mental illness. I'm finished." She chose, and again, was it a choice? I mean, it was the same inbreeding in her was in me. Carrie used to say that we are a result of Hollywood inbreeding, meaning, Carrie and I. And it's true, Eddie, and when you get celebrities together, this is what you get. You get these personalities. And Carrie, I don't think she ever could have stopped. She may have wanted to at times. I remember her being broken badly at times, as badly as you can be broken when you're being told by doctors about these conditions you're suffering, and they're giving you medications that aren't working, and you're in these very low lows of depression, which I don't even know what that's like. but I've seen it, but I don't live in it, so I don't know. But I could tell you that the darkness and the adversity there at that moment is heavy. And everybody can go through their different levels of adversity like that or challenges like that. And the next split second is what happens next. Do I stay down here? But Carrie had watched my mother like I had. And there was no staying down there. It wasn't even a choice for her. I can never remember her saying to me, I've a lot of tears and a lot of tough moments, but I never saw her one time say, I can't do this.
Are you
Why?
talking about Carrie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, unbeknownst to me, Ray Reynolds had been there before with there is no can't in this vocabulary. He had slowly given us all his little life lesson. And what's funny about that life lesson is I didn't get it 9 times now, did I? I'm telling you a story about a one-off event 60 years later.
Mm-hmm.
One-off event. So those words at that moment, and the way he looked at me, you know, he did what my mother did to me when she wanted to drive home a point, especially when I was little. She would come down to my level, and she would get in my eyes. And believe me, when my mother looked you in the eyes, it was what they're afraid of with her. There's a mesmerizing thing that goes on. She had bright green eyes, but there was an intensity to it. It was very intense. And when she looked you in the eyes, you were not going to look away, not for one moment. So the follow-up to that, you know, was always important. Well, guess where she got those eyes? Those were Ray Reynolds' eyes. They sure as hell weren't my grandmother's eyes. She was kind of an angry woman. I don't know what her problem was.
Your grandmother.
Yeah, I don't know what my grandmother's problem was, to be honest with you. I broke her down to tears one time when I was a very young boy, and this is where out of the mouths of babes sometimes great truths can arrive. And she was just ragging on everybody. And as like 7 years old, I said, Grandma, don't you ever have anything nice to say, ever? And it blew her away into tears. So sometimes the simplest of words coming from the most unlikely source.
Right. But I think also, you know, it was a child asking her that. It was her grandson asking her
Right.
that. But I think, too, that when people are angry, I think anger is, I mean, it's hard to be around. But anger is easier to deal with than sadness. Anger is easier to deal with than hurting. So you switch your gear, emotional gear into anger because it's easier. The problem is that nobody wants to be around that. And that's the exact kind of paradox of it all because angry people...
But why is she angry?
Okay,
I mean,
because
you know.
you don't know that she might have had some kind of unmet dreams. Maybe she never spoke about it ever to anybody. Maybe she just had unmet dreams. And then here her daughter comes up and quite simply just walks into this incredible career that she was willing to work very hard for. But, you know, it was a fairy tale.
For
right?
sure.
And so, you know, in her, that could have ignited, sparked, triggered, whatever word you want to use, resentment, a lot of it.
But this
And
gets
so,
back to
yeah.
why. This gets
so
back
that
to why.
that's anger and her no filter thing. It was just an explosive combination.
But this was like why she should have been in this class because it's like.
Well, I don't know. They had these kind of classes back then.
No, because she was not willing. No one ever asked her no one ever asked her why. You know,
Yeah,
why are you
and
like
even
this?
had they done that, I'm not sure she would have said. But
Well,
let me finish what I wanted
you're
to
right.
say about anger because angry people have this anger, choose this anger, wear this anger like a suit because it keeps people out here. You don't want to jump into space, invade somebody's angry person's. Nobody does that. Nobody wants to do that. If you see somebody sad, you might say, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk?" When you see somebody that's angry, well, that's a little scary. You don't want to walk into somebody's space and open up Pandora's box, and you don't know what you're going to get unleashed on you because of it. However, I do think that is part of the subconscious behavior of angry people, is that what they don't realize is that they're pushing away the very thing they need, which is intimacy and love, because people are out there because of the anger. So they are not getting what they actually want in that regard because they're always keeping people at bay. That's what the anger does. See, nobody ever asked your grandmother why she was so angry, because what are you going to get? You already know you'd get an angry response. It keeps people out there, so you're in this kind of safe bubble. So, that's why I try, even when people are angry. And when I say try, I mean I do my best to not hold that against them, to not judge them for it, but to reveal, I guess I want to say, why. And if they know that they're keeping people out here, that they're keeping people afraid of them in a way, which is safe for them, but they may not know why they're doing it, and they wish people to love them. So it's kind of a vicious
You threw a word
circle.
out there, though, that I think is the driving word to the whole thing, which is fear.
Fear is
You
the
said
basis
afraid,
of everything
but fear is
negative, yes.
But it also is what causes people to lash out that way. That's a self-protection mechanism. But I would say that's a big factor. It's also why people, my mother was incredible at saying, when asked, how do you get through all of this? I've watched her answer that question 1,000 times. I mean, God, Debbie, geez, you've had the world thrown on you. How the heck do you get over? She would always say that I don't walk alone, that I talk to God. And she had this very real grounding in her of a knowledge of a relationship with the Creator, yet invisible. So that's a point of faith where something that you can't see has to be taken on faith, right? Doesn't mean it's not real. If I said to you, do you guys believe in gravity? You could say, I don't know, I don't see it, so it must not be real. I don't need to take it on faith, right? Because if we'd all float away, it's real, but it's unseen. So I like to use the analogy that faith is very much an invisible force, much way gravity is. My mother exercised her faith when faced with tough things. She shared it with her Creator. She never walked alone. She had her family, of course. I was there with her. But there was also this higher power that somehow wasn't going to allow the world to fall apart or fall down on her. She knew that. The way I knew that she loved me is the same way that she knew that that was there. It was just as real. As a little boy, if somebody could have said, how do you know your mother loves you? I would have said, well, I just know. Are you sure? Absurd question. Now, that's a brilliant gift to be able to give that to your children. I'm not saying all of us had that, but that was a gift that she gave to Carrie and I. We knew. We knew the way that gravity is there, that her love was there. That's how real that is. But that's also how she walked in life. She walked in life with this great knowledge that she was not alone, that God was somehow not going to give her too much. Not to say that we aren't challenged to the extreme at times. And I've heard it said, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. Well, it sure feels like it sometimes. It sure feels like it. But that's also a time to let it boil up inside of you and roll with it. You aren't alone, whether you know it or not. Just that same way. If I said to you, you know what? God believes in you. Well, I don't believe that. Well, the gravity analogy comes back. Doesn't matter that you don't believe in gravity, it's still holding you on the ground. Doesn't matter that you don't believe in God, although it would be helpful.
Well, a strange thing is, too, that I don't even think, I don't know. I believe that anger turned inwards is depression. That's, very real to me. And I wish I could, it was one of the gentlemen, Joe Hughes said, afraid of being hurt yet again. That's why
Sure.
Angry people do that, to keep people out there. Usually it's because they've been hurt horribly since childhood and
some
on.
of that's the choices and choosing, and we're talking about getting hurt. My mother, classic line was, my picker is broken.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think she ever had one to begin with. She had no concept for some reason on how to choose a mate. But when you're talking about people going back and getting hurt yet again, I mean, you can't blame all of that on everybody else. You might be making bad choices.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you have one after another, then again, that's the beauty. I haven't said this to this group, but I think when things in your life aren't going well, it's important to this here. This is just a human suit, I call it. You know, if you've ever been in the room with someone that passes away that's been ill for a long time, you look and you know that they're not in there, because if there's when there's no life or soul in this human suit, it's very evident. There's no
You know,
feeling
your
that's
pets
coming.
know it before you do.
Your pets know it. They have that instinct. But the funny thing is that if this is just a human suit, then why can't we just unzip it, open it up, and get this big Klieg light on whatever is going inside of you? And so,
I think that's what you're all doing here
that's
this weekend.
this is what Get Your Fire Back is about. But it also is just really a great thing to know that if you are angry, there is a way out of that. And life gets really good when you can learn to put that down.
Well,
that's why I love having these classes, because it's about overcoming, isn't it?
Well,
it's
right-
about
right-
another way to think.
The world is full of anger right now, and how we respond to it is important. Like right now with the war that's going on, and just in general, what goes on, we are all we're in the best of situations here in this country in many, many ways. But there are things going on even within that we're not happy with. You could get mad about the way things are going in the financial areas of this company. You could always find stuff. But when you compare it to the most extreme things like the wars and all of that, our problems are what I call gold-plated problems, comparatively speaking, to the people that, like my family was mostly killed on my father's side during the Holocaust and World War II. Compared to his parents chose just before World War II to leave the Ukraine and come here. And they went through Ellis Island and settled in South Philadelphia, had no money. It's a remarkable story. They escaped. But their direct descendants are all wiped out because they stayed home to watch the farm. Well, staying home to watch the farm cost them their lives. They were all herded off to concentration camps. Now you're watching that show again. Are we as a society going to sit around and allow, this repeat of history like this? I mean, so you could say, is that an angry response to that, or is it a response to not want to relive history? We as Americans, are we the peacekeepers of the world? Are we the police of the world? We sort of have been for a long time. Go back to World War I. We're the ones that ended World War I. We're the ones that ended World War II. I mean, we have been. I don't know the answer to all these questions, but it does cause people to be anxious. It does. You see the anger right now, even towards Putin, but can you blame the Russian people? I mean, they have nothing to do with it. So we can't be mad at the Russian people. You can be mad at a few lunatics out there, But the world is full of this right now, this anxiousness, this fear. The only thing that can overpower all of that is faith and love, and not being negative and not being angry. The obvious response to something is to be mad. Well, nuke them, shoot them, kill them, whatever. Isn't that the response? Oh, you did this, I'll do that. I think we have to get above all that. We've got to get above all that. Not to say we can't serve justice to people that deserve it. I think justice is a good thing. But at the same time, at what price? If we're going to do an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, there are going to be a lot of blind, toothless people around. Maybe all of us at a certain point. No one's going to be left. So there needs to be we need to rise above and have a higher consciousness about this. And I think what happened to the Jews in World War II, if you think about it, they stood around because of their philosophy and allowed this to happen. My God will look after us. This gets back to the beginning of the whole thing where we said God helps those who help themselves. You can't just sit there and expect to be rescued.
True.
You got to row the boat.
But there's a question here.
Put up the sail.
Sharon is asking, but then how can he be stopped?
No, I'm not suggesting we don't stop. I'm not suggesting I'm saying whatever you do, do it in love and compassion. And by the way, love and compassion, what do you do to your children when they misbehave? Within love and compassion, you punish them, you isolate them, you take away their iPhone. Well, I think maybe he needs his iPhone and be locked in the closet, this guy.
He doesn't have a phone.
I'm using this as yeah.
I'm told. That's right.
And take his pen away. Whatever it is, I'm not, the world is responsible, the world, not just the U.S., to hold people accountable for bad behavior.
Yeah.
So we do have to collectively move to do these things. But there are huge differences. I've traveled the world. I've worked on movies and documentaries in countries, that some that don't exist anymore. And having seen cultures, there are cultures that think a little different than us. Is it our job to come in there and tell them how to rearrange their whole culture that's 2,000 years old? I don't think so. On the other hand, if they're then trying to force their culture on us, this is where the conflict begins. So these are complex problems that we'll never answer. But I do think there is a prevailing way to get through all this is using grace and goodness and love and compassion. And, all the good things are the things, that's how you erase the bad things. It is the eraser of bad, is all the love and the good things that we all have within us. So and no one responds to a secondary evil or anger. Get right back at it. Anyway, off topic.
Well, does anyone here have any questions that you want to ask Todd? Because
I think I've covered the entire world history.
that's right. Any of you have any questions? Or do you want to tell him anything? Yes. Terry. You're a terrific son.
Oh, thank you. Well, my mother gets the credit for, anything that Carrie and I became in many ways, because she certainly had every excuse to let the nanny do it. Think about it.
No.
We had nannies. You could have said, hey, I haven't got time for this. You figure it out. But no, she made sure we had what she thought was needed or that she hadn't gotten. Think about that, right? Well, don't we all want to improve on however we were raised? You always want to try to run up that. So I'm sure my mother was very conscious of that. Now, looking back, at the time I wasn't conscious of that, but looking back, I could see how she might think, I'll never do what my mother is doing to me, to my children. I'll never do to my children what my mother did to me. So she went way out of her way. And I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, but I got the benefit of the show, so to speak. And Carrie and I really did get a great benefit of a great childhood. No, we didn't have a father. Obviously one of the biggest problems in society today, worldwide, is the breaking down of the family unit, in my opinion.
Okay, I have a last question that I never thought of before. And it's going to make you have to think for a second, which is always good.
God.
What do you think, because, we've heard all the positive things about what your childhood and a lot of things that, but a lot of the positive things about you taking care of them and all that. What do you think, growing up in this environment of entertainment and chaos, lots of chaos, did to you? That is ultimately, when something happens to us, I do believe it happens for us, no matter what it seems or feels like at the time it's happening. It's like
If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. Don't let it kill you. But what do you think that maybe any kind of baggage or hurts or slights, that you might have gotten from growing up with a lot of you had a lot of great in your childhood. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we all get damaged from certain parts of growing up.
It's I only have one frame of reference.
Yeah.
So I can compare my life to Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best, and then I would think that I had a pretty extraordinary life. I can compare it to other stories that I've heard how other people have lived, and I could think, wow, I had an extraordinary, privileged life in many ways. And certainly there were negatives that came with this. The first negative that came with it was something that Carrie used to say is our family wears its underwear on the outside of our clothes. So you could say this is a horrible thing, that you should have to live in such a way that there are no secrets, that everything that you do is in the public eye, and therefore there is no privacy. But that was what came with the job.
Yeah, no, that comes with the dinner, I always say.
But that's-
and I believe that, and I think that's one of the reasons people who work in the industry make so much money, is because not only do they make money because they're talented, but and people want to watch them, but I think they also make really great money because there's a lot of you have to give up at that level of fame. You have to give up a lot.
Yes.
But it still doesn't, for me, mean that you can't be gracious all the time to
Oh
the
no, I'm
public.
not. There's no
Yeah.
excuse. My mother knew how to handle this beautifully. I'm just telling you. Asked the question, what's the negative? Okay, this is all the good
Yeah,
stuff.
what I meant by that question is directly about you.
Right.
So
Well, that was directly about me. I had to give up a lot of privacy. I had to share my family with thousands and thousands of people, random people just walking up on the street. I had to stop what we were doing and allow that to be them
Yeah.
to be part of the moment. But my mother trained us that this is normal. But that's one thing. I mean, you could go down the list. I would say the privileges far outweigh the baggage and the negatives. But that was a disrupting thing. Obviously, the people constantly needing your mother, as much as or more than you do even. I mean, that's rather disruptive at times. Lack of privacy clearly, can be an issue. One of the things that was interesting about my growing up was we lived in this huge house in Beverly Hills at 813 Greenway Drive. We had 24-hour security. At night, German Shepherds roamed the property. This was right after Sinatra's kid had gotten kidnapped.
yes.
And the FBI was sitting in the cloakroom when I was in school. Like we had like 20 seats, and then there was a place where you hang your coat in the back of the room. They'd sit back there, sit out on the playground. I mean, honestly, at that age, I really did not like that. And it's not that I had a thing about, you could have thought, this is cool, I got an FBI agent following me around. Instead, it was like, wow, I don't want to be different than these other kids. This is like not cool. So that was disrupting. And this led to also a paranoia at our house. I was afraid not to have my blinds all the way down, like all the way down, because someone could be looking in.
Mm-hmm.
People were trying to get my mother. We had life threats. I didn't get rid of that paranoia until I moved out on my own, until I got away from the Greenway house in my own little place, and then I didn't care. Doors unlocked, whatever, it didn't matter. But that was baggage. That was not a positive. To have to live in fear that the bad guys, the deranged people, and there's always a few. No matter how many thousands or millions of fans you have, there's going to be a few that are a whack job. And Carrie used to call them the merry band of stalkers. And some of them are harmless, and some maybe not. So we had a person killed on our property trying to get to my mother. This has a tendency when you're young to sort of
Stick with you.
You're like, wow, this is a weird world we're living in here. So that's a negative. I think having to live under those conditions is unfair, but it comes with the job. So my mother had to make the choice. So what do I do? Well, I'll protect the family. So there's security guards and electric eyes and dogs, and
Yeah.
it comes with it. Other negative things. I mean, certainly when you live a life with a major celebrity, it's up to that celebrity to prioritize life, family, things like these things. So my mother was very intense about Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner. I don't care what was going to go on. She was going to make sure those events went down. And they were amazing events, like quite the parties. But those events went on no matter what. She made sure that those certain events went on. And I think that was her idea of trying to keep this sort of sense of normal. My great-grandmother said when Carrie and I were very young, we were dressed up in little matching outfits all the time, and they were always taking pictures of us. And my great-grandmother, who was half Indian, she said to my mom, "You're ruining these children." My mother was like, "What?" You're ruining them. They're always dressed up for photo sessions. They can't just be children. They need to play in the dirt. So the next thing that follows is me sitting in the gutter playing in the mud. And Carrie has a leaf in her hand. And she's touching the dirt with the leaf. She didn't want to get dirty. Me, I didn't care. But that was a great moment. Because here's this, great-grandmother, wisdom coming in from the sidelines saying, hey, okay, this show business thing is over the top here. You can't live every day like a photo session. Literally every day we were dressed up like little, movie props, and photographed. I mean, you've seen how many pictures are upstairs. So I don't think any family on earth has been photographed more than Carrie and I. None. There are none. So, that's to me was a negative, but she finally let me play in the dirt, and I'm really thankful because I love playing in the dirt.
Well, I can tell you what your grandfather did for you because you have, everybody has a foible. And some foibles are cute and some are annoying and some are, not, we all have foibles. But what your grandfather saying, stay here to fix that fence in the Kant story, he said when you start something, you finish it. That's what he said to you.
Yes.
So now...
60 years later.
If something is broken here, and he can fix anything. I love a man that can fix things. I love a man that he can take my computer apart and put it back together. I love that nerdy stuff because that's what turns me on. I love to have a man that knows how to fix things. So when you start fixing something, you can't stop. It's like a thing in your head where you can't stop until it's finished. That means if you have to stand there for 24 hours working on it.
Which is why I always warn you.
And that's where you get that.
But that's also why I warn you sometimes. Are you sure you want me to get into this?
Oh, I know. And after 12
Fair
years,
warning.
I'm pretty sure I know, what.
Because once I start,
yes.
it's over. Tell the story of my mother talking to you when me trying to get the motorhome out of the driveway, and you wanting to.
And she said that there's no bad in you.
Well, no, the part.
And then she said that you would be incredible to me. Then she said that you would never cheat on me, that you were a good man. Try to think of all the things she said so many things to me.
It was raining, and I had the motorhome in the driveway, and it was parked on her front lawn.
On Debbie's front lawn.
On Debbie's front
lawn.
lawn.
She loved having that motorhome out there because it made her feel like Todd was there. It was. It
represented my childhood.
Yeah,
too.
because
the first car she ever
16.
bought me was a motorhome.
But
and it was sitting in her yard.
So what did she say to me that you remember about that?
You were going to try to stop me.
Oh, because it was pouring rain, and you were trying to push this motorhome out by himself that was mired in mud and grass. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, her grass is completely ruined. I mean, it was a big motorhome, and she didn't care.
No, but she told you have to just let me do it now, dear.
That's right.
Now, dear.
That's right.
Don't try to stop him because once he starts something, he won't be able to stop. So, fair warning.
No, it's true, and I already know that. So now, before I tell you something that's broken, I do think about whether or not it can be fixed within an hour.
Well, it's a question if you want me offline for that time.
Exactly. So I just want to, before we say goodbye to Facebook
an hour and
Live,
a half.
No. It's break time.
It's 11:30.
Yikes. Today is our big day. They don't know exactly what goes on today. But all of you who have been to get your fire back, you know what day it is. And I love this day.
There's your
it's
little
a great
logo
thing.
there. I put on. I got the 2-shot on.
And I have to say, if there's one thing that you could say to everybody out here and all of our girls in here right now about life and about being happy and about creating the life we want, which we do, co-create, if in my case, because in our case, I would hate to be doing this alone. I mean, I really would. If I didn't have God in my life, I would be on my own. And, but what is the thing that you would like to tell people to be okay, to be all right, to feel peace right
Well,
now in this world.
I've said quite a bit along those lines, but I mean, the idea that we don't walk alone is an important concept. Whether you have that person immediately with you or by your side at that moment, you still do not walk alone. And the idea that there is a higher power that is churning in your benefit to bring things in order, to bring you your dreams or help you with your dreams, to bring you the right person. I've never toiled over who I was going to be with. When my wife passed away in 2008, I was alone for about a year and a half, and I didn't toil over what was next, or when was this going to be, when was I going to find my mate. About a year and a half in, my sister started to bother me about it. She said, "What are you doing? It's been a year and a half." I'm like, "Yeah, like what this is like. Okay, I don't know your situation, but you don't know mine either." But she encouraged me. She said, you need to at least throw the freaking fishing pole in the water. So I did, and that's what I found on the other.
You got this big old fish
So the
that
cat was on the end of the hook.
grabbed that bait. That's Zzz.
But there's truth to that. There was things set in motion. I was encouraged by Carrie. It set certain things in motion. So that was my part of it, was to allow certain things to get into motion. That's as far as you can go. But then you can't control necessarily, beyond your reach, so to speak. So this is where it's really important to be able to know that your Creator has your back, that you're not walking alone, that even though you don't see it, it's still there.
And even if you can't feel it right now, it's still there.
You don't feel gravity either, right?
Right.
I mean, I love the idea that there are powers in the universe that are unseen. They're around us all the time. People say, "Oh, I can't believe in this because I can't see it." I mean, or "I can't believe in this because it's not like tangible." I mean, where's the proof? Well, at a certain point, you could be like Einstein, who's a super smart guy, right? Who said that he didn't have enough faith to not believe in God because the evidence was too overwhelming of everything around us, just nature itself, ourselves. So there's a lot around you that would compel you to believe that there's a lot more going on than meets the eye, so to speak. And for those reasons alone, it's sometimes a great way to take rest in that knowledge that force is out there, whether you like it or not. It's out there. But as Jack Hayford said to me, what do you got to lose by just asking for the involvement, to involve God in your life? That's all he asked me to do. He just said, "What's wrong with asking? If you're real God, I'm opening the door for you to be involved in my life." That was all he asked me to do. And that's all I've ever done. I've never done more. There's nothing more one can do. But in my experience, it's very real. And in my experience, it is what has gotten my family through things. It's certainly gotten me through a lot of things. I'm way harder to deal with God behind me than I am with nothing.
It's interesting. I don't think that we noticed it as much as people that were visiting, but your mom knew that she was going to will herself off this planet. Once Carrie passed away, it was, as your mom would have said, a fait accompli. She knew it, and it was like she was either being prepared or she was preparing herself. Do you remember?
Sure.
Letting go of things. She had no anger in her at all. It was just like someone came in and went and took that out and threw the needle away. She was not upset about Harry or Eddie or, anybody. She was really
Yeah, it was
preparing
remarkable.
herself for the glory life, and to graduate to heaven, So it was interesting to watch that. And had we really been more aware, because everything was so focused at that point on Carrie because of what happened on the plane, and her being basically in a coma, right? So we weren't as focused on Debbie as we were on Carrie. because we knew a lot of things that for Debbie hinged on that. But had we been a little more awake in that, we would have seen this preparation, I think, and gone, what's happening here? You know, it was that remarkable.
And I would recommend not waiting until the 11th hour like that. I mean, no slide on it. It was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
It was nice to see her release some of the things she held on to. My mother was a very forgiving person. In fact, probably one of the most forgiving people ever. I'm pretty high up on the forgiving chart, wouldn't you say?
You are the master forgiver. You
But-
are the master forgiver. But you know what?
I'm not saying it's for everybody.
No, forgiving is for everybody. But we
I mean
talked
to that
about this
extent.
yesterday. You know, what forgiving is and what it isn't. And that you don't, because people out there have been harmed, injured, hurt horribly, all of us. And, you know, you don't necessarily want to forgive somebody because you're afraid that they might step back into your life and they
Well, that
can't be
doesn't. You
trusted.
don't allow them back necessarily. But
no, but that's what I'm saying.
to
So
be able
the
to release
forgiving
it.
is the releasing of the anger and
And it
hurt.
comes
and
with
it's
the
for
boundaries.
You, and it has boundaries, and it does not mean that you have to have lunch with this person. It
Right.
does not mean you are not called to have any time with that person.
You could still
Forgiving is
visit
a,
them.
is
You
a
could visit
separate
them in
thing.
jail still.
Yeah, but forgiving in itself is a very separate thing than forgetting, you know. But it's okay to remember as long as you don't hold all of the negativity and hurt and that the person brought you, because true forgiving is letting go.
Well, and the
For
words
both of
and what
parties.
goes with that is judging people. So part of that is if you're judging somebody, whether righteously or unrighteously, it is probably it's okay to do that to create your boundaries and to protect yourself. But typically, judging is a bad thing, and it's actually what screwed up many societies and religions for hundreds of years, because they create these rules and they judge people then by them. Yet the great masters of truth, like Jesus Christ, never judged anyone. He only accepted the sinners. In fact, he hung with them more than he did all the righteous folks. So that tells you a lot right there about that. Now, that doesn't mean that he would have allowed himself to be taken advantage of. You got to be wise, to draw your boundaries, build, protect yourself accordingly. But it's a bad business to be in, and it is certainly what it's. All these things are connected. You see how all those things, how that connects to the other thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm glad that we touched on those two subjects, because
I think we've touched on 20 subjects.
well, these 100 subjects. So thank you everybody for hanging with us. It is one of my very best friend's birthday in the last few days, and we've just been going at breakneck speed, so I haven't had a chance to celebrate Linda's birthday. Linda Kornreich, who is one of the people in the room, and also she would be here. She never misses a Get Your Fire Back, because we call her our spiritual mother.
She can't get enough fire?
She can't get it. Well, no, she becomes spiritual mother of everybody that's in the group, and it's pretty awesome. So, Linda, thank you so much for being my friend of 40-something years. We were flight attendants together in the 70s, and we have reconnected, over the last decade, and I just couldn't be happier. I love you very much.
You want to give her a hat?
Yeah, I do. I want us all to give her a special ha for her birthday. At the
On
count
three,
of
then.
3, everybody in the room and in the room over here. Here we go. Linda Kornreich. 1, 2, 3. You got a better one for me. Happy birthday, Linda. So great. Thank you so much. You are the best. All right, we're going to say goodbye. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to get to the good stuff. And everyone
camera.
Off
The
camera.
secret,
This
off
is
camera.
definitely off camera. That's right. So everybody have a great day. That's all I have to say. Make it a great day no matter what. I like that. Make it a great day, right? Twist that pretzel and make it straight if you have to, but don't let the turkeys get you down. Have a good one, everybody. We will be back at some point this week and next weekend. Have a fantastic day.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. I'll go to the wide shot and sign
Go
off.
into the wide shot and. Okay.